Well, hello. I am Suzanne Hanifin with Acumen Executive Search, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Tanis Morris.
Good morning.
And as you know, Hiring for Good is a podcast on leadership and lessons learned. And today we are so excited to have the leaders of Blazer Industries with us, Paetra and Kendra. And just to kind of give you a little background, they are second generation. And Blazer actually started way back in 76. And fantastic story of finding a need, filling that need, and then really evolving and pivoting. And just to let everybody know, it's construction, but in modular homes. As you drive down the freeway and stop at the rest stop, it's the rest stops, the potty area. And all this evolution and growth and moving from Silverton to Umsville, which now in Staten, so smaller towns. And so I'm excited to really hear your journey, how the transition worked, and to share a little bit about each of your backgrounds. And I'm not sure, Paetra, do you want to start?
Okay, well, thanks for having us. Where should I start?
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. There's actually 3 siblings.
Yes.
And you all have been involved in the organization for a long time. What are your roles today, and how has it evolved?
Well, I could start from the beginning. We've been part of the company since day one, just counting nuts and bolts, sweeping floors, cleaning bathrooms. We've done a little bit of everything growing up as kids, and then into adulthood, we started working. So we've worked through a variety of departments throughout the company and learned as we've gone.
If you don't mind, I would love to hear just a little bit more about exactly the type of work that you're doing now, and just maybe a little bit more information about the evolution of the company. Since you've been there from day one, do you mind just saying a few words about that?
Well, our grandpa owned a portable toilet company, and our dad started working with him, who was his father-in-law, and through a series of events started building portable commercial restrooms and evolved into building offices and classrooms. And here we are now building a combination of commercial buildings and residential buildings.
Okay, thank you.
And this is in the prefab construction world, and they've actually, and I'll do a little brag for you all, for PSU, you did the 3-story green building, which again has energy certifications and so it's.
So you're doing a lot of different types of work now, correct?
I love their custom prefab homes, modular homes. I think it's pretty amazing.
So. Yeah, we build small single-wide office trailers that can be moved from job site to job site. And about 10, 15 years ago, we built a full high school, 2-story high school, STEM school in Redmond. Yeah, we've built a multiple custom homes, built up to 3-story multi-family buildings.
Yeah.
All prefab.
All prefab.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, that's a really fascinating space right now. There's so much movement. I'm very interested to hear. We can talk off mic.
It's a tricky business. I'm sure we'll talk more about what we've been through as we've taken over the company from our parents. It's more than just Legos, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into that. Give us some of those learnings, because again, it's not just transferring from founder or parent to children. Like I said, there's 3 children. And there's ego. There's the complexity of family in of itself. Yeah, let's turn it over to you to tell us more about that.
Construction in general is a challenge. The Pacific Northwest is known for having very stringent building codes and energy codes. So what may have been a simple building 20 years ago is not so simple now. Every building has to go through energy analysis and has to be highly insulated. And that raises cost and complexity. So we've been dealing with that for a long time. As far as a family-run business, what do you have to say about that?
It's hard. It's very difficult, I would say, but also fun.
Yeah.
There's just a different feeling of, I mean, ownership is one thing, but it's part of who you are when you're raised in a family business, and it's hard to get away from.
Well, and I was going to ask you that. I mean, here are the holidays. How do you sit down and have dinner when everybody's involved in the business? Do you talk about business, or is that off the table?
We don't when we're together. I wouldn't say we get together a lot outside the business, mostly because we all have our adult families and they're growing and growing. So it's harder to get everybody together at any given time. And people live out of state and just have different things that they need to do. So it's never been a problem for us to be together outside of the company.
And we're all different. We have different interests. And like Paetra said, we've got our families that are doing their things. It's hard to work under a microscope sometimes. Everything we do is watched and judged probably. But we have finally started pushing back a little bit on that because there's always going to be drama and disagreement in a workplace, whether you're related or not. And it's okay to disagree as long as we're working hard and working through our issues.
When you say, so I have a couple of questions. So first, you had mentioned, from the time you were small children, you were intimately involved in the business. So my first question is, when you grow up in a family that is running a company, do you feel like for the majority of your life, you always knew this was something you would step into leadership and run? And did you both always feel that way, or?
Speaking for myself, I did not feel that way. I don't know that I actually thought about it either way, though. It was there. I never thought, oh, hey, I want to take part of this company. You just did. And, then as adults, it becomes more somewhere you want to be versus planning for it, in our case anyway. I wouldn't say that we were groomed to take over the company or there was no plan for next generation. We just all just worked, and including our parents. You just didn't really look that far forward, which is a detriment, we feel, as second generation, to not have planned ahead.
And then what about you? Did you have the same experience, or did you?
Similar. I always was interested in working in the company and running the company, but we really didn't, like Paetra said, we didn't have a plan. So we have really, up until the past few years, we had no idea if we would have the opportunity to really take the reins of the company.
And then I'm sorry, I will finish the second. I'll do the second part of my question, which was so growing up then with kind of this. It sounds like the whole family was very intimately involved with the organization. You even kind of alluded to that when you said that you feel sometimes like every decision you make is being really carefully overseen. That sounds like, is that your parents, or is that kind of everyone in the whole family?
It's
watching.
It more has to do with our employees and people we work with are watching.
Oh, because you're the new leaders. Is that right? Okay. And when did the transition occur, or is it still kind of in process?
It really started in so we started working on it in 2020, maybe even before then. And officially in 2021 is when we transitioned.
Okay.
And let's talk about that transition, because as we were sitting down and talking, we're seeing a lot of transitions today. And you said something that kind of surprised me, that there was no plan. How did it occur, and what happened?
Well, we're all getting older, the three siblings, and we could see that there needed to be some pretty major changes within the company, just culturally. Part of that had to do with growth, and it's just we have a different workforce than we had in the beginning. And the markets have changed quite a bit. And aging, as we are aging, we need to figure out, hey, we need to either do something more here or we need to move on. And again, I'm speaking for myself here. So you can see that there needs to be a lot of change. And working within the company for so long, it was just time and kind of spinning wheels after some time of not being able to really affect change. And so it was a conversation that we had as a family of 5, about what we're all going to do. Is there a place for us in the company? And if so, what happens to our parents? Where do they go? And so it took us, I don't even know how long we worked on this.
It was over a year. We had a consultant working with us to help us communicate as a family and work through the issues and make decisions on what we would do moving forward. And I lived in Washington at the time, so I got a call or an email from Paetra saying, you need to come back. So I came back once a week for a year. We were having family meetings to discuss what we would do. And it was really hard for our parents to step back from working full time, from having full control, from not knowing what we would do. We had to make some promises to them, and we've abided by our promises.
And also what they would do with their life. I mean, that's been their livelihood for nearly 50 years. Right. And now what? And we felt for them on that, on that level.
And so structurally, where are your parents? They're still involved on the advisory board? Are they involved in the day-to-day?
No, but they're there. So that if we have questions, they both still have an office. In fact, we've moved them together into a single office now. They take up valuable real estate. They are still around, and for that, we do appreciate that we can just turn around and ask a question if we have a question, or we have to be careful about what we ask because then they'll dive too deep in. But
Right.
But we respect all that they've built and all that they've gone through and all the experiences that they've had that maybe we didn't, weren't able to participate in at the time. And they have a lot of knowledge and wisdom, you can say.
And when you were kind of trying to figure out the organizational map of new leadership between the 3 siblings, how did you make your decisions? Like, who does what? How, now that can get us into what you're doing now, I guess, for the organization and where your brother fits in and all that.
We drew straws.
Really?
We've got different skill sets.
Yeah.
And so we talked over how we wanted to do that and just made a decision between the 3 of us. And also knowing that we can change our minds if maybe we hire somebody to a certain position or maybe we shift. So ultimately, we committed to running the company together, but also separating our responsibilities so that we're not overlapping and not causing confusion within the company, which we still do sometimes.
Yeah,
but
our original goal was to cause the least amount of disruption as possible to our employees, to our clients, and to ourselves. I mean, it's a lot to make that change, especially when they were used to one person being in charge of everything for so long.
But the 3 of us have been immersed, even if I've been gone more than the 2 of you. We know our clients, we know our employees, our suppliers. So it wasn't as if we were just coming from nowhere. We really continued doing what we were already doing.
Yeah, and you alluded that your father and the early parts of the organization has a strong culture. And I'd like to kind of dive into that because you are in a small town that I believe you're one of the largest employers in that town. And it is tone at the top and keeping that culture alive, but yet evolving. How was that transition? And you made promises. What were some of the promises you made to your parents?
Some of it had to do with staffing, keeping certain people, not making major changes.
Immediately, at
Immediately,
least. They wanted us to keep the current leadership group in place, which we did. We're now making changes, but I think it was it was a worthy promise to make to keep the continuity in the company and work through how we were going to run the company and manage it.
And that
now-
goes back to culture, to your point. We want people to feel safe, and we want to offer stability. And so if you come in and just immediately start making changes, that's not a good thing to do to your team. And we have 150 employees, and that's a lot of families to care about, and we take that seriously.
Yeah, and it sounds like even if you're trying to cause as little disruption as possible, when you came into leadership was a very transitional time with kind of COVID
very difficult,
and
yeah.
everything else. So, do you care to discuss some of the changes that or the pivots that you had to make just kind of because of the way the world had changed?
Yeah, that's hard. I've forgotten a lot of what we've gone through. You kind of put that out of the way. I mean, HR is that was a big part of it. Just continuously changing and communicating, figuring out how to navigate that world of we're very much rule followers in our company too. So we followed all the requirements very closely, but that affects staffing, and we were able to keep everybody. I mean, there was a lot of turnover in new employees, but our tenured staff, they all stayed. They followed the rules. Nobody died under our watch, so we were very happy with that. And even outbreaks were minimal, and just keeping people safe was our top priority. But to do that, we had to make some sacrifices, and part of that is the work that you take on. You can take on less because you have to spread out. Then dealing with the supply chain challenges, which those were really, really hard for us to deal with, and the changes in pricing. And so between the supply chain and staffing, it was a lot to navigate. And I would say it was very, very difficult on everybody. It's all hands on deck. And
I kind of missed out most of that because
Yeah.
I wasn't there at that time. But after the pandemic, our market changed, and that's the pivot that we had to make aside from different employment issues that we were dealing with. And so we were primarily building a lot of classrooms, and lots of classrooms in the summer, very busy summers, not so busy winters. And that the portable classroom business really dried up. But we were lucky enough that we had embraced the demand for residential, and we had started really quoting and slowly building residential, and that has actually filled the void for the classroom business. And not only are we not building smaller classrooms, we're actually building a lot of large classroom complexes, which we prefer to build anyway. So we were just sort of lucky and willing to put the work into pivoting our product line at the same time.
And we have the team in place to handle that type of work because over the years we've done such a broad variety of work that it was not a difficult pivot other than the residential. The residential work we've done in the past has been very high end and it hasn't fit well with commercial. And the residential work we're doing now is I wouldn't say it's low end, but it's a lower end than we were doing before. So it's a better mix. It fits in better with our other work.
And and this is maybe just an Oregon question, but with the governor and the infilling and housing, are you able to capitalize on that?
Yes, we applied for and won a large grant from the state of Oregon to develop a product line for housing.
That is
ultimately
awesome.
to build
Yeah.
more housing for Oregon.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
we were just saying that a year ago, we were writing the proposal. We were just underwater trying to get the proposal written, and then I went and took vacation. So she was working on it, and I came back, and we scrambled to get it done, and then in January we won.
Wow, congratulations. Again, another huge pivot. And it sounds like, again, when you look at individuals, we all come with our ego and our own stuff. But it sounds like you two really do work together and make decisions together. How does then bringing that third sibling in, is he part of all this decision making also?
We have a lot of work to do in that regard. It's difficult. First of all, we have our day-to-day jobs. We also have ownership issues that we need to work through and deal with. And to be honest, we haven't taken the time needed. That can always weigh, you think. But it's always hanging over our heads that we have more to do in that realm. It's hard.
We're not the best communicators in our family. She and I can work very seamlessly. Most of the time, we talk enough about what's needed for the business that we have a good sense for where she's going, where she might have concerns, where I might have concerns. I tend to push pretty fast. She tends to not pull back, but she's more, I don't know, how do you say it? I like to go fast. She likes to go slower.
Yeah.
And it's a good balance. So we recognize that, and we can help pull each other toward the middle.
And how do you, what leadership responsibilities do you each take on? Have you stratified, or do you all kind of do the same stuff?
No, we've really split things up.
Yeah.
I'm president, so I take on more of the business side.
And I'm business development. So I'm really focusing on bringing in, developing the new product lines and further developing our old product lines for what we think we're going to be building in the future.
Well, in addition, we've always been a little bit of a secret. Our company, that's our business model. We're a wholesale builder. So we haven't needed to market, or we've been blessed with a small group of clients that do the marketing and the selling, and they come to us. But I would say over the last 10, 15 years, that's changed, and we've realized that we need to actually be more forward-facing and let people know that we exist. And it's not only because of the work that comes in, but because of employees. If they don't know we're there, we're not going to draw them. So part of Kendra's role, a big part of it is to outreach, to be part of the community, go to events that you don't always have time for, meet with people in the community and broadly.
Go to podcasts.
We're honored to support you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to start to kind of ask some of our more traditional questions, but if we have more specifically related to the transition, we can talk about
I
those
have
first.
one last one, and that is, again, kind of looking at lessons learned. If you were to give advice to somebody who's looking to transfer to their children, what advice would you give them?
Oh, we have a lot. Do you have time? Start early, for one, and plan for it, whether you're going to do it or not. And that's really what we want to get to for Generation 3, is there's so much that needs done, and it doesn't hurt to start early. Even if they decide, or you mutually decide to not have them be part of the business, there's so much they can learn that can benefit them in whatever route they take. And so it doesn't hurt to start teaching them how to read financial reports, how to be in meetings together and communicate, just learn about giving and
Our culture in general, our business culture.
So start young, start early, and plan for it one way or another.
And so Generation 3, are they being groomed currently?
Whether they know it or not.
We have some plans
We're
for them.
manipulating from behind the scenes. I think we're mainly having long conversations. Our kids are all adults, so we can sit and talk about what they want for their life and what we might be able to offer them in the business. We don't want to pressure them into doing something that they don't want. I think also what we've learned by observing other second generation owners and what we've experienced is there's no clear path and there's no right personality or skill set to manage a business. You have to be flexible and willing to work hard and have a dose of humility and fear is good. And you have to love the company and the people that you work with.
Absolutely.
That's very wise. Yeah.
Yeah. And so going back to what Tanis was talking about, kind of our core questions, and that's probably a good segue of building teams. So when you're looking forward, what do you look for when you build teams? And again, you have a lot of legacy employees. How do you go about that?
I would say one thing that we had talked about for years is we want to make sure that we're hiring people that fill the gaps. We don't claim to know everything, nor do we try. And our personalities, like we've talked a little bit about the personality in our family, we're not the best communicators. We've grown up in the company, so we don't have as much outside experience as we would like. We're probably not the most emotionally intelligent family. Not that we're not dramatic, but there are just other skill sets that we're never going to have and that we have to hire for.
Yeah, I'd say humility is a big one. It's nice, somebody that's, you talk about ego. I mean, having less of an ego is very nice. It's hard to find, to be honest. People that are trustworthy and honest is something that we look for.
Yeah, and when I talked about ego, I think in this country, it's what we do is how we see who we are. And it's really hard for like the parents to say, okay, now who am I if I'm giving this up? And that's a interesting dynamic coming together as a family. And so, yes, yeah, it's very, very challenging.
Well, and our parents sometimes maybe see us as kids, as their kids. And, well, you were like this when you were a teenager, so we're not going to let you forget that. And so sometimes, and we siblings, we get hung up on the experiences we had growing up. And it's hard to move past that sometimes.
Well, you talked about like emotional intelligence, but I think in some ways just I'm part of a family with a family business, and I have, multiple siblings. And, sometimes I will behave in ways to my siblings that I would never behave or even to my parents. I'm ashamed to admit this to everyone, but, I would never like yell at someone in the workplace, but I might yell at my brother or my, somebody else in my family. And so in some ways, I think it's really incumbent on you to seek out ways to develop some of those skills because you haven't had to, or at least in my family, I don't know that that's like a big, we weren't actively working on our EQ internally.
And oddly enough, it's one of the things that people love about our company as well, that we're not stiff, we do make mistakes. I would say we don't have big egos, partially because that's not the way we were raised. And so I think people feel that we're authentic. Even visitors will comment that our entire company feels comfortable and authentic. They can tell that we like who we work with and that they, most of the time, seem to like us as well.
Well, that's really interesting because my next question I was going to ask you is kind of about like your personally held values. And so I would say probably, humility, authenticity, those are things you've both referenced now multiple times. If you could identify, maybe each one of you probably has your own personally held values. And now that you're, have stepped into senior leadership in your organization, how do you operationalize to the company the values that you closely hold? I guess we can start with Paetra.
Oh, that's the hard
Yeah.
question. Values is such a hard topic because there are so many values, and then try to whittle them down to one or two words. But I would say the same thing. Just people that are honest. You really want that throughout your company. You want people that care about each other. And I feel like those have really come through, especially caring. It's amazing the people that work with us and how much they care for each other. So even though I might not have much of a relationship with them personally, because I'm not working with them every day, amongst their team, they're very close. And it's fun to watch those relationships flourish and just the different dynamics of people that might not normally be friends.
So you operationalize the values of through building teams, like through hiring people that kind of embody those values. That's what it sounds like. And then what's your approach?
I like to have a service mindset. We're all working together for a common cause, and we should support one another and be able to pitch in. So it is important to us that we work really hard along with our colleagues and just support one another. I want people to come to Blazer when they visit and when they work to feel good that they're there. We don't all love working every day, but you should feel safe when you're there and welcome, and then feel good about going home to your family.
Well, I'd say you're a dream team. We have one, like you're building the organization, values wise, and you're embodying it. It seems like a great fit.
Absolutely. So one question we love to ask, which is the wisdom that you've learned, and looking back, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self? Or what advice would you give your children on the next generation?
I think to some extent, especially for girls and women, is keep that fierce attitude and don't let people get you down. Don't get caught up in the drama. It's easy. That's easy for me to do, or it has been in the past. And at some point, I just had to say, okay, no more of this. We just need to move forward. So I think just building confidence, moving on.
Well, and you're two women in a very male-dominated industry. Do you think that's beneficial or something that you've had to overcome?
Both. We had to overcome it at first. I mean, going to industry events, for example, we were two of the only women there for many years. And now it's fun to watch more and more women enter the field in all different realms. And even within our company, I would say it's really grown and become more acceptable, as sad as that is to say, but it's just more normal now. And that is nice.
Yeah. So I'm not letting you off the hook, Paetra. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Probably to start earlier, start learning earlier, and start really thinking about what I want and what I can offer, not just maybe to the company that I'm in, but in general. And I think for me, I didn't necessarily have the confidence to just speak up or jump in or participate early on. You just kind of I got used to just going about my daily job and not really thinking, not forward thinking, I guess you could say. And so there's a lot of lost time. So I would say participate earlier, or at least think about what you want earlier.
Yeah.
That's great advice. And then the last question that we ask our guests is what hiring for good means to you. So, I don't want to pick on you twice in a row. Yeah. Whoever wants to start can jump in and just tell us.
It's definitely a very important part of being in business. It's amazing the difference it makes to hire good people. good people thrive around good people, and the toxicity of one bad person, and bad's the wrong term to use, but negative person can cause so much, can wreak so much havoc. And so you can't always pick them right every time, but you can chip away at it for sure and do your best to hire good people.
I think ultimately finding a win-win agreement with the person that you're bringing in, and also from the very beginning, reiterating our values. We're not opposed to evolving to something better, but it's especially when you're hiring somebody with a really high skill set with lots of in experience, they're going to come in with their own set of values, even if they're closely aligned to us. We really have to spend the time talking about who are we, why do we do this, where do you fit, and sort of work our way through that.
Boy, I love that. And I need to say congratulations to the two of you, because what a success story to work through a transition that did not sound very planned out, but really thrive in that and go with new market, the complexity of the changing market and pivoting. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Yes, thanks. Such a pleasure. We will be posting some of your information and information about your company on our episode page. And it's just been truly an honor to get to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, and check out Blazer Industries. You all, for being here in Oregon for so long, have an amazing story, and I can't wait to interview you again 5-10 years down the road.
When we have everything figured out.
Yeah.
All right.
So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today at Hiring for Good. If you were inspired by our conversation, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you want to learn more about our executive search services, check us out at www.hiringforgood.net or our company website, Acumen Executive Search.
Thanks so much, and don't forget to join us next time for another in-depth conversation about transformational leadership. Until then, have fun.